You and I have a mutual friend, I believe, Scott Geddes in New Zealand. If anyone is feeling like the tides are changing in this industry, you might want to pay attention to Scott. Anyway, while I was talking to Scott most recently, Scott said something that I don't know if I disagreed with, but it was something that caught my attention enough to make me put it down on my topic list to like, we should talk about this. He said, the market demands tree removal.
I think this idea of the market is like a boogeyman. It's a handcuff that, well, if they want it, you have to give it to them.
The having of the customer is always right mentality kind of disregards a lot of your education or training as an arborist, in that even though the client's language might not particularly say it specifically, they're looking for input. That's why they've called you. And if you're just saying okay to these things that you may or may not know aren't in their best interest long term or in the tree's best interest long term, just by going along with that, that sort of helps it sort of makes our cultural image what it is. And that a lot of people think, well, you just call an arborist and they'll just do what you tell them to do.
Yeah.
When I guess a large percentage of them do in fact do that because they think that's what the market demands.
Mm-hmm. We should assess their goals with them, come up with a solution. We're working with our clients. We're not just working for them. It's the goal of finding the proper solution to an issue in the multitude of ways we can. And sometimes that is removal. Like sometimes there's a tree that can't be moved, that is interfering with something, some structure in such a way, or that it is in a condition where it is posing too high of a risk to stay where it is.
It's overprescribed. Yeah. And this is evident by when you get out of your truck and you start setting up on a job site, the first thing that someone walking their dog says to you is, are you taking it down? Which tree are you removing today? That's the first thing that they say.
That's the first idea that the general public has of arboriculture, is that we remove trees. The majority of people I talk to, it's like, I'm an arborist. Oh, you cut down trees. It's exhausting.
Yeah. Another thing that we were talking about at dinner was that you figuratively shaking me and telling me like, dude, this is part of how tree businesses work. Sometimes trees have to come down. And yeah, totally agree. But you brought up an interesting point about I don't mean it in the terms of risk, but it is a safe thing for people to prescribe because they know how to do it, and there's no residual aftercare. There's no follow-up questions in a year or two after you remove the tree. Once you've killed the tree, it's dead. It's gone.
It's hard to be wrong when the only goal is to get rid of it.
Yeah, yeah. Or when the only opposition you have is dead.
Yeah.
The evidence, if the tree was actually high risk or whatever, when the evidence is gone, how do you argue with it?
Never leave a paper trail.
Yeah, or never leave a corpse behind.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's a very easy solution to a lot of what clients perceive as problems and what a lot of the arboricultural industry perceives as a problem. Oh, it's growing too close to this. Oh, the roots are going to interfere with the foundation. Oh, this is going to happen. The tree's too big for its space.
It's over mature.
But when you're just removing the tree, it's the simplest solution.
Yeah, it's not literally it's not complex at all. Well, not to say that rigging and whatever is not complex, but the outcome.
Yes.
The outcome is a simple outcome. It's gone. Problem solved.
And I was on a consultation, and the client was saying, "Are any of my trees going to fall over?" I said, 100% absolutely every single one of these trees will die or fall over. But that is life. You will also die or fall over at some point, likely way before these trees. So let's reframe this idea of, jumping the gun on, well, we got to remove it before anything happens. I have found a lot of aspects of arboriculture are sold in a way that it is immediate. There's a lot of immediacy to the solutions that we're giving, where, a removal or even a pruning. Pruning is frequently overprescribed, where we're removing parts of the tree. It's an easy thing to show a client. Look what I've done. Problem is solved. Thank you for your money. Goodbye.
These solutions are immediate and they're one-time things. You don't like this branch? Let's remove the whole thing. Disregard the potential outcomes of that in 15 years. When that problem comes up, they'll call me back. This approach also, I've written about this a lot, also lends itself to why the public has such a distrust of our industry, because I'm sure you've had this too, going on certain consults and looking at certain features on trees. Some, let's say, have a big cavity in it, a result of a huge removal cut. Well, back 15 years ago, this should have been disclosed to you as a possible outcome of this decision. And that's not how tree care is done, really. A lot of it is saying yes to clients' every specific need without asking probing questions and not disclosing the possible outcomes of those actions.
There's a lot of sales that are not thought of in terms of tree time. Like I tell clients all the time, like I'm trying to predict the future. Like I'm looking at the impact that these decisions we make now are going to have in 15, 20, 30 years from now. And with so many immediate solutions, a lot of that stuff is not disclosed. And like you said, people don't trust us because, the last person who was here, they said, we can absolutely take that big branch off. You want that 24-inch silver maple limb that's over your house gone? Sure thing.
I think there's also a major deficit in the ability for tree people to articulate their objectives, the possible outcomes, differentiating between risks and stress. I think earlier you said, if you're in the position where you're talking and interfacing with the public about their trees, you need to know a lot more than you do, mostly. And I think there's also a lot of conflation between someone who's an expert at tree work and someone who knows a lot about trees. Sure, people have crossover, but by and large, this Venn diagram does not intersect much.
It's certainly not as much as it should.
Yeah, and people think it does.
Yes, and I think that's one of the biggest issues is conflating the two together. That, they cut down this tree very, very well, nothing was damaged. Let's ask them what's going on with why is this tree declining?
Well, come look at this other tree I have in the backyard.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's not saying that every single person in arboriculture has to be an expert in every aspect of the field.
You have to acknowledge what you don't know.
Yes. You have to know enough to know what you don't know and acknowledge it.
I would extend that into knowing what is knowable information and what is not.
Mm-hmm.
If someone takes you to a tree, yes, you can always answer yes to the question, will my tree fall? Yeah, at some point. But one thing I hear a lot from tree experts when I'm a second or third opinion is this other person told me that this tree probably has 5 years left to live. Things like that, like non-knowables, I think that's a huge element that once you get good at trees, you realize, like the Dunning-Kruger curve, like where you actually are on that curve becomes quite obvious the more you learn about trees. And it becomes especially obvious as soon as you start engaging with clients, and that they're going to ask you questions that you have no idea, you do not expect, and you don't even know if it is knowable or not.
It's really comical that I know I had this when I started doing more serious consultations, being more curious, learning a lot more about the trees themselves, that I had this idea that everybody expected me, like the general public expects you to be an absolute encyclopedic knowledge of all things with trees. If I can't look at a tree from Google Street View and diagnose what's going on with it, I don't know what I'm talking about. No one's going to trust me. And that's just not true.
The inverse is true.
Yeah.
That goes much further than bullshitting some answer like, oh yeah, it's probably got like 4 or 5 years left to live. How much longer do you think my tree's gonna live? The right answer to that is, I don't know.
Yeah, and you can't know.
It's one of those non-knowables. It's not a knowable thing. Granted, if it has, I'll skip that. I will go on that tangent forever. So before we started Tree First, we were in the big arb paradigm. And I was sort of bought into some of the dogma about some of the common big arb dogma. And after reading a bunch and learning more about trees, I realized that I think there is a way to work with trees in terms of like a business that did not require me to do things that I didn't want to do to trees. It seems like there is a common sentiment among a lot of arborists who aren't independent. Just like Scott said, Scott doesn't want to be killing trees, but he also says the market demands I do so. That fundamental disagreement led us to creating a business where I don't have to do that. Plenty of people want to kill trees. I'm not going to do that. You make the point that that's a necessary part. Like, yeah, trees have to be able to be removed, but I don't have to do that. Plenty of people do that. What I want to do is I want to be the guy that people call when they want things taken care of. I don't want the calls that people are committed to killing this big, awesome tree for reasons that I don't see as necessary. And you said earlier, the homeowner can do whatever they want, but I don't have to do that.
And these two sides, like not even two sides that they're not opposing, they're parts of what we do. As arborists, we are responsible for trees, for individual trees in the urban environment. Like we're not foresters. We're taking care of individual trees on people's properties. These things can work together. The issue is when people start, the public and people in the industry themselves start conflating the two aspects of the industry as the same thing. And there are people who are very, very well versed in both sides. They can, remove trees, have all the equipment to do so, and can take very good care of trees. But like you said, that Venn diagram isn't as either lined up or separate as it should be. It's in this weird middle ground of the public finds one person that they may or may not trust and views them as the sole person who can take care of these things. Like if Tree First has a tree where it's like, this is it. Like there's not a lot we can do. It's time to remove this tree. There is someone you can call and work with. As long as the inverse is true, where they're like, I'm not sure about this. Or this tree is really nice. Does it need to go? Let me call Tree First to get an opinion.
Yeah. This is at risk of going on a tangent.
Tangents are good.
Which I'm very prone to. There is this huge gulf of, maybe that's not the right word. People think taking care of trees equals PHC. And I'll argue till I'm blue in the face. Taking care of trees, there's an element of PHC. Although I hate calling it that. I don't call it that. But the listener knows what I'm saying when I say PHC. that's an element of it. But above all of that is having like a nourished and well-formed understanding and attitude towards nature as a whole. Not like trees are these objects that you could just do whatever with. Having an understanding of the roles trees play ecologically, that doesn't just work in a forest, that works here. That works no matter where you put a tree, it is a tree. It's not changing by its context. Lack of perspective is how you take care of trees. You can have no PHC equipment at all and be a good tree steward if your decision making is good, if you are thoughtful and have like a more zoomed out understanding of do I say life? It's a more zoomed out understanding of like how things actually work and not strictly on market demands. To bring it back, my point with bringing up Tree First here was that we have made the point of the Tree First project is to sort of prove it that, albeit tree removal is necessary, you can work with trees to a great capacity that doesn't rely on removing trees. The point of making the business was to prove that, and I think it has proven that. It's gonna keep doing that, but I don't think there are enough people who believe in that because they have a stronger faith in the market. They have a stronger faith in what their competitors are doing. And they see all their competitors with, well, they have a big chipper and they have a big chipper and so do they, and they have a lift. Like, I need those things to work with trees. And I would argue, and perhaps I'll be arguing this at Arborfest 2026, is that you don't need all that stuff to have a good impact on trees.
A lot of that heavy equipment leads you to working for clients rather than working with clients for their trees.
Working to pay off.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that the talking about heavy equipment really and paying it off, that is the market that is driving tree care right now. It's not what clients want, because if that were the case, what clients want to do is not pay us. They don't want to have to deal with any of this. Like, nobody wants to pay for removals or tree care.
It'd be great if you could do nothing. And it's good.
That is the ideal. That is what the clients want. All they need is their problem solved, their goals handled. That's not the market that is really at force. There's this push within the industry that, climbing is dangerous. There are hazards involved with climbing, 100%. It's a lack of training. It's a lack of regulation. It's this pushing of more and more and more mechanization to the point where I'm predicting that we are seeing a split within the industry of arboriculture to there are equipment operators and there are arborists, and they're diverging and becoming different fields.
We'll see a new Venn diagram form.
Third Venn diagram.
Of those, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting prediction. I think the main argument for mechanizing is like it removes the human from the equation. I think that mechanizing, there's currently at least, a severe lack of precision. You're not going to go up there and make the 2-inch cuts that I'm making with a tree mech.
Oh, yeah. And
when that day comes, the conversation will be different. But currently, that's not where things are at.
And I've told some of my friends who own tree services this for years, the work you do is the work that you get.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
And the more you unfold your tree mech and rip down a tree, the more trees you're going to be ripping down, the more you are going to see that clients say, I need this tree removed. And that's the end of the conversation. Yep, here's your price. We can be here then. Rather than figuring out what is the goal? Why are you removing this tree? Mm-hmm. And continuing to be curious. You've got a crane payment to make, so Let's keep stacking work.
You're not going to be disagreeing with their request by any means because that crane payment's expensive.
And it leads to, and then the industry backing it by saying, look how safe this is.
It cares more about, I know the industry is like it encompasses a lot of things, but it's a self-serving thing.
Yes.
It's propping up the companies that support it the most. It's totally a feedback loop. Sure, it is a safer thing to do for people. However, it doesn't at all consider the environmental impact of removing whole neighborhoods worth of trees because you have bills to pay.
And aside from the environmental impact, which is massive.
Yeah.
It's a massive impact, but we don't need to be certified to run cranes. We don't need to be certified to do anything. We write new rules all the time. We got to start doing this. We got to start doing this. We're going to have 2 ropes in every tree. We can't get people to wear helmets.
Yeah.
Who cares what rules are written? The ANSI is a voluntary standard. We're not recognized by OSHA. There is no enforcement of any level of regulation, especially on the national level. Like if we want to, and this is what's going to cut into people's bottom lines, is protecting our industry, giving ourselves more credibility, is going to be tree protection ordinances that are enforced and safety standards that are enforced. Where all right, you've got a worker without a helmet, you are shut down. Sorry. You are losing money. You're losing your business. You leveraged your home into this business. Too bad.
Sure. There's going to be a ton of pushback against something like that. I don't disagree with your...
Oh, absolutely.
The flavor of person that most arborists are...
Not going to fly.
Don't like that. However, I would argue in the same way that I argue, like, I don't have to listen to the market. They would argue, like, I don't have to listen to these regulations. So what you said earlier is absolutely the case, that if there is no enforcement, there's no rule.
Yeah.
And who could you imagine who would want to be the tree police?
I think it'd be kind of fun.
You think so?
I think it could be.
You might be uniquely qualified to be the tree police.
You get a helmet with a little flashing light.
I guess, that's to say there are OSHA people, but that requires the tree police to know what's what also.
Oh, yeah.
It relies on them having some... I'll wait for that. That might be loud. The tree police would also have to have a good arboricultural compass. And that's something that we kind of circle back to a lot when we talk, is that, like, the way that all of the good arborists land on having that good understanding is different every time. There isn't actually, like, a clear path into, like, how do you get good? How do you have good perspective? It's really, there's not a clear way to land on that.
We wanted to talk about who should be enforcing these regulations, and we're asking OSHA to do it. I would way rather see the TCIA and the ISA put some money into that rather than their winter management conference.
The executive conference in some Pacific
tropical
island.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't see the impact.
Low-key, I kind of wanted to go to that because I wanted to see, what is this? What is actually being done here?
Ooh, we could go to the executive management.
Imagine us there.
Just be menaces the whole time.
It's often front yard trees that are the first to get poached because it's easiest. And you and I were talking about it recently, and you brought up that there's an economic threshold where it's so much harder to poach the backyard trees because it costs more to kill them. Therefore, a lot of people tend to have big, awesome backyard trees because tree guys haven't been able to price it in such a way that they can go poach those trees at a price where, like, the homeowner will find it acceptable.
In very inaccessible areas, a lot of times not great soil conditions. And in weird growing situations between a bunch of buildings that they become economically unfeasible, where the market actually starts pushing itself towards not removing trees. And taking care of it because it's here and you're not going to spend the amount it's going to take to get this tree out of here.
So at that point, it seems like for the non-educated public, cost is more of a barrier than keeping a tree around for its innate value.
Contracting, I have worked on projects where I'm brought in, we take down a very large backyard tree, and at the end, I'm just chatting with the client while I'm packing up my gear, and I point out that it's going to be very hot in their backyard, and they'll say, "I never even thought of that." It goes back to expecting your clients to be the expert on what's going to happen. They're unaware of the consequences of what's going to happen. I could call a plumber and tell them I want a faucet that doesn't close in my attic because I want to fill up a water bottle from whatever nonsense reason. And if they say, "You want it, you got it. Here you go."
They're going to get in trouble for that.
Yes. They are going to get in trouble for that.
And there's no equivalence on our side of things. The client isn't expected to have those types of foresight. We think it's all simple. We take that stuff for granted. We deal with trees all the time. But that's part of what we're supposed to be doing, is outlining the outcomes of, well, if you do this, you're going to see a difference in the hydrology of your backyard. You're going to see temperatures rise across your whole property. You're going to see your cooling costs go up. Like these things that are seemingly obvious to us that you don't bother saying to the client because you think they ought to know, you need to disclose those things.
Our job isn't to make the decision, but our job is to have or acquire the information to make for the client to make an informed decision about what they're going to be doing with their tree. Mm-hmm. And the biggest part of our job is coming up with a solution that accomplishes the goal with the least amount of damage to the tree, to the ecosystem, to the client, financially. Yeah. Like, that's the point of being an arborist.
Yeah.
It's not, I rigged down a big piece of wood and I can hold a chainsaw over my head. That's not an arborist.
No, that's an Instagram person.
Yeah. Selling based on fear. Like, I don't know how you fix it. It's a pet peeve of mine. Well, this tree is dangerous. You need to cut it down. I can be here tomorrow, not allowing time for another opinion. And again, the public they should be able to trust us. They don't trust us. We have earned that fully. They should be able to trust us. They put their trust in a person who is saying, your tree is dangerous. It needs to come down. I can be here tomorrow, is such a common and horrific sales tactic.
I wonder if it's better for us to say that the trust is misplaced. Because at the same time of them having a distrust of arborists, they'll also trust an opinion that aligns with their bias. I already want this tree gone. If I get an opinion where we say, honestly, like, there's a lot of risk reductive things you can do to, like, retain this tree, and I'm not going to remove it because there are viable alternatives to doing that. I'm sorry, like, I'm just not going to, I don't want that blood money that, we can keep this tree, but anyone else will give you an opinion that will happily remove this tree. They say, okay, piss off. And then they get their second opinion that says, oh yeah, it's really dangerous. Then that client can feel more at ease and more justified because, well, this other arborist said it was okay, so it was okay. So perhaps it's better to say that their trust is misplaced.
I don't even know if it's misplaced. It's that simple solution. It comes back to that simple solution where if you have one person saying, no, like, it's going to be okay, this is what we can do, and another person who had the same credentials, because certified arborist is an introductory credential. I'd argue even, we're both BCMAs. We took a test. Like, you could have two BCMAs giving these completely conflicting levels of information, and one of them is a permanent solution that holds no risk after the removal is done. It also holds no benefits.
Yeah.
It allows for an easier, more simplistic decision-making process. If you get rid of, it's viewing the tree as a benefit or viewing the tree as a problem. And if they're like, the tree has some benefits, but it could be a problem, it's much easier to say, this tree is dangerous, you need to cut it down.
Sure. And I think it's also an easier conversation to have.
Yeah.
It's like there's not a lot of nuance I have to navigate in terms of explaining things articulately. I don't have to know the ins and outs of tree biology to know that most people are afraid of being crushed. Mm-hmm. It's a simple play. I think there are also incentives in people's companies to not defy sales quotas. They're incentivized to, you get a bonus, whatever the case. Like you're not really incentivized to be like an actual arborist with agency if you exist in that big arb hierarchy or that big arb paradigm of, like, you know how it's stratified of sales arborists, crew, foreman, whatever. There's not a lot of places in where most arborists work. The agency, the freedom to actually make decisions and to have input, it's not really permitted.
As just a person working in the field, you don't have a lot of opportunities to go back and see the work that you've done and seeing what impacts that has. And it makes it really hard to predict those impacts without a lot of, research on your own, and then you're not allowed to implement it.
And too, like, I'm sure you can attest to this, like research only will take you so far until you have to put your hands on the tree and actually like climb the thing and feel it and do the thing. I think that's why a lot of people become arborists, because like they kind of need that like tactile, they have to touch and do. And I think the way that a lot of those people would learn is not fulfilled by the company structure that they are in, the default big arb structure.
And I know that there's been some progress made in creating apprenticeships that I think that's a really good direction for the industry to be heading in. But I think that there is a lack in some of the, I'm not even going to say curriculum, because the information is there, but showing in a way that is easily digestible by a lot of people within our industry of how beneficial it would be to go with someone and be like, here's what I prescribed, these are the cuts I made, this is the impact, these are the reactions you're seeing because of that. And I think that is a difficult thing to put into an apprenticeship, but that would be, in my mind, the way to teach.
It needs to have a field element.
Yeah, and not just going to work.
Yeah.
Like, to see the impacts of what we've done. And we do this all the time. We were looking at that bab oak earlier today. Like, look at this huge cut. The people who made that cut likely have not seen it and seen the reaction within the tree from that cut. Mm-hmm. And working as an employee doesn't give you a lot of room for experimentation to deal with those problems.
Yeah, you don't ever have to come up with solutions, mm-hmm. or you don't ever have to explain things, and it can nerf you. It can keep you, in the hamster wheel, mm-hmm. so to speak.
And the lack of interaction with clients when the work is already prescribed, in a way, it stunts arborists in arboriculture. When the people who are implementing the work aren't having conversations with clients and learning how to communicate in a way that finds the actual problem you're trying to solve and has the knowledge behind it to offer an actual solution.
Or to have enough thorough understanding of it to converse about it.
Yeah.
In that we want to have our clients ask us questions so that we can volley this ball back and forth, and that's how we're both going to together reach this conclusion, mm-hmm. or reach this solution that I'm confident they understand what we've talked about.
And that goes back to working with the client to work for the tree.
Yeah.
Like, yes, our field of expertise is trees. This is what we do. I think people will just, go down the Google list and call whoever.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you're lucky enough to get someone who has no idea what they're looking for and
as a client.
Yeah, as a client has no interest in taking care of their tree. They just have a problem that they want solved.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're the one who's lucky enough to get there, you can prevent a lot of damage.
Yeah.
And that's...
But I'm saying that if you navigate that conversation with the intent of, I'm going to maintain the integrity of this tree and whatever else, that's the approach that you ought to have.
Yes. Come in and be an expert.
Yeah.
Know what you're talking about. And I know you hate the term tree experts, but be knowledgeable in your field and act like it.
Yeah. Yeah, and defend things when they ought to be defended.
Yeah.
In the great equation of where all of these problems arise from, like you have the industry, you have the public, you have arborists or tree guys, and business practices. To talk about the industry could be the topic of an entirely separate conversation. I think that there is an over-reliance on getting these certifications. I think you should get these certifications, but I think that they're treated as endpoints and not starting points. And that really stalling out at getting your CA is a plateau that a lot of people kind of hang out at. But I think, I found my train of thought. I think if the CA cert, I'll just use that as an example, but this could mean any professional certification. If those were adequate at having good outcomes for trees, then malpractice wouldn't be so easily found just by walking in any neighborhood. If those were adequate at not only telling arborists how to treat a tree or where, what to cut, when, whatever, they would also, those certs would also have to inspire those CAs to give a shit. And I think it doesn't do that. I don't think any cert inspires that. And that unfortunately falls onto the practitioner themselves to give a shit.
The irony of a contract climber talking about too many removals is not lost on me. But the cool thing is I get to converse with a lot of different people who have different businesses, different business theories, and I get to kind of spread my own curiosity around to these different companies. And something that I hear consistently is the lack of respect our industry has as a professional trade and as a profession and as a craft that, I certainly feel like isn't there and isn't to the level that it should be. I think we're at the level of respect that we deserve at at this current moment. But then the same people will fight back against regulation. And I agree, like, regulation for regulation's sake is nonsense. But when you look at the industry globally, the areas of the world that it is a more tightly regulated trade that has higher standards, higher entry points. You need to have certain levels of tickets in the UK, for example. You need to have certain certifications before you're even allowed to do things. Those areas have a higher level of professionalism and therefore a higher level of respect for the trade by the general public. It's a real chicken and eggs situation where if we have these regulations and if things are tightly controlled, then the public is going to start seeing us as more professional rather than walking up, what tree are you taking down?
I think I agree with all of that. I would add that there's undoubtedly problems in their own system. Yeah, you're not implying that it's perfect, but
No.
And I know that hacks exist in every place, but I think another benefit that those cultures have is like a deeper and longer history, just as countries. And I think those populaces just have a better reverence for history. And by proxy, that means trees, when they can point to, well, this oak was around during King whatever's reign. They have like just a deeper appreciation for history that I think that our country just, or our culture in this country just lacks. Totally aside.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally aside.
I was talking with a buddy about that too. And the infrastructure, the entire industry is already built around maintaining those trees.
Yeah.
Like, whereas
long ago, those trees had TPOs put around them, and they didn't even like know like that.
So the industry developed with that mindset in those places.
Yeah.
Whereas like a lot of it in the, and we're seeing it now. The explosions in growth within the tree industry, of Dutch elm disease, of emerald ash borer. Like they create an inroad for a ton of people built around removals, around removing these trees. And that influences the industry in such a way that it becomes more focused on removals rather than...
And that's how all those guys get trained up.
Yeah.
That's what they know how to do.
That's how I was trained.
And a lot of people's route into the industry is there's a lack of apprenticeships. There's a lack of like comprehensive education or arboricultural degrees. A lot of the way people start doing tree work is getting a job at a tree company. And you have...
Yes.
Nice work. And you have no way of sussing out if the guy teaching you knows his stuff or not, because you're an ignorant. You don't know.
Yeah.
And you kind of just have to believe that who's teaching you is teaching you the right things. So as far as like the industry goes, we could talk about a lot of different like ways in which the industry, that means like the chipper providers, the people who build the tree mechs, the industry orgs, how all of those things will influence how we approach, how arborists or tree guys approach doing all of this stuff. But no matter what, it's always going to fall on the individual to give a shit and to be more curious than not, more curious than complacent.
Oh, I like that.
That also kind of extends to not just knowing about trees, but knowing about where trees fit in the sense of what do trees actually do in the realest way possible, major contributors to the environments where they are in. It's the shortest way I might say that. And if you don't see trees as that, and instead see trees as ornaments or burdens or things that need, or problems that need solving, like the fact that the tree exists at all is not an innate problem for the most part.
Usually the problem is that the house is built under it.
Yeah, yes, that's a better way to put it. One must have like a comprehensive view of a greater context that this tree is more than just this big leafy mess I have to clean up every year. That kind of attitude towards trees is, do I want to say weak? It has no aura. It's nothing. You don't have any good position if trees are not the only real thing, to quote Jack. The only real thing in an urban setting often is trees. I'm not done griping yet.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever be done griping, but I think a lot of the way that businesses equip themselves also dictates what they do. The company that spends a lot of money on chippers, they're going to use the chipper to pay off the chipper. And so when you have a big chipper, you are sort of incentivized to put big things into the chipper. And this is a good analogy to expand from, in that I mean that in a literal way too. But let's say you have a small chipper. You're somewhat limited on what size of branches you can cut. And if your interest is not in killing trees, and if you do have an interest in preserving trees, you could perhaps forego getting an 18-inch Intimidator and get something much smaller. Because as you know, if you're good at pruning, you're not often making big cuts. You're often doing more climbing than cutting. But if you have a chipper that is small, multiple things happen. Firstly, it signals to the clients or to the public that you are actually about the shit that you claim to be about on your website. If you're about preserving trees and all these things and you actually mean it, there is some social proof in having only a smaller chipper that can accommodate those things. It can also act as guardrails. If you're someone who cannot resist killing this tree, it would be so easy, I can make so much money. If you're not disciplined enough to resist those things,
now it's gonna suck.
Yeah. The small chipper is actually a guardrail that's like, you can't do those things. But this is also a chicken or the egg thing. Oftentimes, a lot of smaller practitioners have small chippers because they know how to do good work, so they will equip to do the good work. It's not likely that someone has a humongous chipper and is only doing weight reduction pruning.
And I don't think it's always either or. And I think a bigger issue in this is this idea that, and I've seen this from a lot of people who have started smaller companies, and that's it, with the goal of becoming a practitioner, coming off of it with the and just going into your standard tree service model. And a lot of it is due with this idea that you have to be able to do anything for your clients, where there's this, well, what if one of my clients that I did a nice weight reduction pruning for has a tree that they need removed? It's this fear-based idea of, if I refer them to someone else, well, then they're just going to become that client. And this kind of gathering, this hungry hippo style gathering of all the marbles of, I need to be able to do everything. I need to keep everything in house. I need to do all of the work. And I've seen that be very successful for, I've seen companies with tree mechs do fantastic pruning. It's not all mutually exclusive. I've seen these companies that do equip very, very heavily, do really good work, and also remove trees. But I would say that's not the norm.
Yeah, I think it's harder to do that.
And those companies are run by very curious people who want to learn and want to learn more and seek it out. And
I think it is a slippery slope.
Oh, yeah.
You have to be so conscientious of where you're making business decisions once you get to that point, that it's so easy and tempting. I see it all the time. Companies around me have started up recently and originally had one thing in mind and quickly sold the trees out to become production companies. If you can get a high enough price, people will justify just about anything.
Oh, yeah.
No aura.
And then on the flip side of that, I've never seen someone doubt their decision to remove a tree so quickly as when I'm talking to a client. I'm like, I'm not removing this tree. Like, I don't care how much you pay me. No.
Someone will gladly do this, but I'm not taking your blood money for this.
Yeah, and I'll just say it goes against my ethics as an arborist to honestly even have this conversation about removing this tree. If you would like to keep this tree and, are worried about risk, we can have that conversation, but no.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Not enough people have that conversation. But again, you have to have like you can't be bought into the whole like big arb dogma of like, well,
it's a question of ethics.
Sure. Well, there's not a source for that in within the industry. We've all, I think, brought that from outside within, but I don't think there's not like a beacon within the industry that is like proselytizing about ethics. And I don't know if I'd listen to them either, but perhaps something like that has to exist because like I think that's the main common denominator with a bunch of us arborists who care more, that we've all landed on this like compass that how do you get the compass? How do you find where north is? I don't have an answer for that.
And it's never going to be an industry-wide, like
it can't be.
It can't be. And you and Jack have proven that the small practitioner model is viable, and it publicly showed that, like, it works.
Yeah,
it works, and it has. I've seen it just in conversation with other people, inspired them to move in that direction. So we've spent 2 hours proselytizing. So, well, welcome to the ethics board, buddy.
Yeah.
All of these conversation topics and different points all come down to kind of the same thing, where it's like we need to take individual responsibility to be curious, to think ahead, and guide our clients in a thoughtful direction, and continue to be thoughtful rather than taking the easiest solution, which is this tree's in a bad spot, it's over mature, it's too thick, it needs to be thinned. Oh, it was lion's tailed. It was topped. There's nothing to do about it. We need to cut it down. It's the easy way out. It's like, let's think a little bit more critically, look at the benefits versus the risk. Let's have this conversation. Talk it all through with your client. You're not making the decision. It's so often that clients are not given the information that they require to make an informed decision.
Like the learning how to climb is hard, but you get good. Everyone's the best climber. Same goes with like talking. You have to practice, but you got to like put your harness on. Mm-hmm. You got to actually like go and talk and do it and execute on it and practice it, because it takes practice. And just like with climbing, despite all your practice, some days you have shit days and other days you crush it. And the same happens when you're talking with clients and actually striving for having good tree outcomes. I promise you, your sense of fulfillment will have a massive spike if you have good conversations with clients.
And having those good conversations, it's getting rid of that salesmanship, getting rid of the I'm trying to sell you this. In tree care, we're not selling anything. We're giving information. We're saying, if you've had enough curiosity to get all of this knowledge, to think about how things impact the ecology, you can take someone who says, I want this tree either removed or a completely detrimental removal cut, taking a 24-inch limb that's over a house. Talking to them about the consequences of that makes them change their mind.
And it's not that hard. You just talk to them like a person.
Yes, exactly. The problem with a lot of these skills is that they can be flipped the opposite way. And these good communication skills and a lot of charisma has killed a lot of trees.
Yeah.
And, well, if it were my tree, I'd take it down.
Mm-hmm. I was taking it down yesterday.
Yep. And it's a double-edged sword, but that's where the personal responsibility comes in. And we're never going to get rid of the fear-based selling tactics. We're not saying we're going to make the industry perfect overnight, but there's a lot of room for improvement.
It's a understatement. I don't even think the preoccupation should be with changing the industry. I think the preoccupation should be have good tree outcomes.
Yep.
And I think the rest kind of falls in place with that. If that's your North Star, you will succeed.
Absolutely. And this starting to create a cultural appreciation for trees.
Much needed.
As it gets hotter, we're going to need them. That shade's going to be real nice.
I fear that as it gets hotter, we'll see a lot of trees not take kindly to that. And there'll be a big spike in people killing and cutting and, you know.
And it takes a long time for a tree to get bigger and big enough to provide real benefits. So like,
and it can take 1 hour to cut it down.
Yep.
A lot of years of effort gone in an hour.
Is this silver maple here an ideal tree? That's what I have in my backyard, is a silver maple. Is it ideal? No, like there's other trees that would be better suited for the location. That's the tree I got. It's going to be there. It's going to stay there.
That's a metaphor for something, I'm sure. Sometimes you just have a silver maple.
Sometimes you just got a silver maple. And at the end of the day, like, you are the one who is in charge of the work that you do. That was a weird segue.
Yeah, you can say no to things too.
Yeah, you got to live with yourself. You got to be able to sleep at night.
Yeah, and if you want to sleep in cardboard, you should take care of trees. But if you want to sleep in a California king-size bed, you better kill some trees and go into a bunch of debt, because you'll be able to afford a lot more if you just say, fuck trees. Wait, which side am I on? Well, this is going to be a nightmare to edit.
Oh, yeah.